I'm echoing. I hear you, Isakin, but you're echoing. Am I echoing? It says I'm unable to start video for some reason. Oh, well.
Kathy, you'll let us know when we can see people and
Yes, I will.
okay. So we're doing this in a unique way today. That's all right. Does anybody have any adjustments or changes or edits to the minutes? And you'll just have to unmute yourself and speak up, and Kathy and Jessica will take the information down.
You can share your screens now.
There we go. All right.
If everyone's ready, I move to approve the minutes as is.
And was that Carolyn?
Yeah, this is Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome, Heather.
And Sonia, I'll second it.
Thank you, Sonia. Anybody have any? I'm going to stop my sharing here and see so we can see people. Hi, you can put on your videos now. There we go. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see all of you. To see your bright and happy faces. So Carolyn moved to approve the minutes. Sonia seconded. Is there any changes or modifications? Does anybody have any information or anything to adjust? All right, given none and given no hands up and no comments, then if you could just put your thumbs up, or that would be great. We can see that. And then we'll approve the minutes by consensus. Thank you very much. And a thumb in the, that's good too, whatever works. So appreciate that. Thank you, Isakin and Kathy and everyone for getting us streamed in. And we're just new ways trying to figure this out. So let's do a quick introductions, because it is nice to just know who the people are in the room. And I know we have a couple people joining us that weren't able to be here last time. So I know that I introduced myself and Ashley, so I will just ask each of you just to unmute and quickly say your name and what you represent, or what school you're at, or what your role is. And then we will get back to the agenda and the slide deck. So Carolyn, I'll start with you.
Okay, my name is Carolyn Urrutia. I am the librarian at Bothell High School, and this is my 3rd year on CMAC.
Great, thank you, Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
Sonia.
Sonia Hulk, principal at Maywood Hills Elementary, and 2nd year on this committee.
Great, thank you, Shelby.
It takes forever to find the unmute. That's so funny. Shelby Reynolds, Assistant Director for Instructional Technology and Library Services. This is my year on the committee. I actually don't know. I haven't counted, but more than 10.
There you go, more than 10. Thank you, Shelby. Tracy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Patterson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I think this is my 5th year on the committee.
Great, glad to have you here. Nikki.
Hi, Nikki Smith, Assistant Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And I think I'm going to pull a Shelby. I think this is my 4th year. I'm not sure, but we'll go with that.
Great. Great to have you here. Julie.
Julie Trembath Newberger, Director of Special Education, 1st year on CMAC.
Tamara.
Hi, I'm Tamara Kelly. I teach English at Leota Middle School. This is my 2nd CMAC meeting ever.
Well, we're glad you came back. That's important. We didn't scare you away. It's nice to have you, Nancy.
I think I'm unmuted. Nancy Dodson. I'm the librarian at Canyon Park Middle School, and I think this is year number 5.
Yay, great. Fernell.
Hi, all. I'm Fernell Miller, second year on CMAC. I'm a PE and health specialist, and it's my 40th year of experiencing your curriculum since a 5th grader in the district. And after I retire, I think I will be the last Black educator in front of students on a daily basis in your district. I need to be here. Thank you. Wow.
Thank you, Fernell. Ava.
Hello, Ava Thomas, she, her pronouns, Director of Racial and Educational Justice, and my 3rd year, I believe.
Right, welcome. Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Osgood. I teach 3rd grade EAP at Sunrise. I think this is year 6, but again, I'm not really sure.
It's hard to remember those years, I know.
Yep, they're blending together for sure.
Janine.
Hi, I'm Janine. I am 4th grade EAP at Sunrise, and I think this is year 4 for me.
Great. Nandita, I know you were having technology issues or audio. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Well, I'm a community member. I have a daughter in high school at Woodinville High School. I've been living in the district for many years, but I also have some experience with the Family Partnership Program and some other programs. My kids have also attended Bear Creek Elementary and Timbercrest. So yeah, so this is my 2nd year as a community member.
Great. Thank you for giving the time. We much appreciated. Ebonisha.
I'm Ebonisha Washington. This is my 1st year on CMAC, and I'm one of the assistant principals at Skyview Middle School.
Great. Thanks for joining us. And then we have 3 wonderful support assistants that are helping with this process. So Kathy.
Whoops. Hi, I'm Kathy Burrell, and I'm the admin assistant for the East Region, and this is my 2nd year on CMAC.
And then next to you is Gazzy. Hi, Gazzy. Oh, she's muted.
Yes. Oh, Gazzy Sullivan. Okay. I'm Gazzy Sully. I'm admin assistant for Heather, and this is my first CMAC meeting.
Yes. Yes, Gazzy, you have to come back. So that's the rule. Hi, Jessica. And then Jessica, they're all up in the same office. So they're all trying to train and help. And go ahead,
Sorry,
Jessica.
we're all in the same room and it echoes, and that's annoying. I'm Jessica Keto. I am taking notes. Thank you, everybody, for saying who you are when you approve things so that I can put it in the notes. I appreciate it.
Yes, that helps tremendously. So thank you for reminding us also. So great. Again, thank you everyone for your presence today. Let me see. Let me share my screen here. Uh-oh. Why doesn't that work when I want to do it? And then when I don't want to do it? Let me see. It works great when I practice it, just FYI. Kathy, do they have a copy of the slide deck in their folder?
Yes, in the CMAC members folder. I'll put the link in the.
All right, we can put it in the chat also, probably. That might be easier.
I'll do that in just a second.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda for today is on the slide deck, and she just linked it in there. These are some of the same slides that we went over last time about the purpose and responsibility of CMAC. I'm not going to go through all of those today because we did that last month, and those of you who weren't here can and have been on you've been on the team before, so you already know what those are. But again, just a brief reminder that this is the body of work that makes instructional materials adoption decisions, not decisions, or correct myself, Ashley always said recommendations. We are a recommending body to the school board. So our job is to listen to the information presented, the requests for adoption, and then we make recommendations, and this goes on to the school board for final approval. So we have a lot of work to do. It will get busier this spring, as you'll see today, as we move through the agenda items, that there will be plenty of opportunities for all of us to review some wonderful novels that are coming forward from our ELA middle school and high school adoption teams. And we will have an opportunity then to approve some materials for our high school civics and government courses. The first thing on the agenda today then was our consent agenda item. And this was a request that came from Ashley that was in your email last week that Kathy Barella sent out. And this was a memo in response to doing a grade level adjustment for a novel that has traditionally been taught at 11th grade and was approved for 11th grade for at the IB school, which would be Inglemore. And the teachers that Ashley's been in contact with requested a grade level adjustment to do their freshman year. And because it's a consent agenda item, we do approve it. I have reviewed it and I recommend approval. So I'm going to open it up to Ashley to add anything else to that. And then we can have a motion and then second it and take questions. So go ahead, Ashley.
Sure. I think the only thing that I'll add to your really thorough summary is that this novel, Haroon and the Sea of Stories, is a really great option to be able to teach and co-teach English classes at the freshman grade level, just because it does offer like a surface level plot driven analysis, but also offers the ability to apply some really thoughtful critical lenses, and also allows students to really be able to do a really deep, thorough reading of the text by looking at like historical context when Salman Rushdie published the novel. So moving it from the IB 11 curriculum is something that the IB 11 teachers at Inglemore are in support of. And so it's something that would meet the needs of the co-teach classroom at all 4 comprehensive high schools.
Is there a motion on the floor? And then we can discuss it. Come on, somebody needs to do it.
I wonder if some people might need a minute to read the wordy memo, if perhaps they haven't had a moment to do that yet.
Great suggestion, Ashley. So if you haven't had a moment to read that, if you could read it, and then if someone could make a motion to approve the consent agenda item with a second, then we can discuss it. So we will pause.
And I will refrain from making the motion since my name is the one on the memo.
So I will make the motion, but I want to make sure I word it correctly. I'd like to make the motion for approval of moving Haroon and the Sea of Stories from 11th grade IB to all 9th grade courses on this consent agenda item. Is that the correct way to word it?
Yes.
I second that motion. Julie.
Okay, that was us. Jessica, that was Nikki who made the motion, and Julie who seconded it.
Nikki did the hard work there. So
is there any discussion from the members on questions, discussion, anything on this item?
I can respond to your question in the chat. So this novel is taught at the freshman year in school districts around us. When I worked at Issaquah, it was a standard text option at the freshman grade level. So if you haven't, I know that Salman Rushdie is someone who has been in the news before for some controversial texts, but Haroon and the Sea of Stories on the surface is a story about a father who tells stories and who loses his ability to be able to tell them. And so Haroon goes on an adventure to try to help restore his father's gift of gab. more like connotative meaning of the story is about silence in Iran, and what happens when artists and writers are silenced and what we risk. Just so you have a little bit of a summary. In the memo, it does give the back of the book summary, but I would say that no, I do not believe that there are any age appropriate challenges with moving the book from 11th grade to 9th grade. It would allow us to follow suit with neighboring districts.
Yes, and my daughter read it in 9th grade in Seattle. So Seattle uses it in the 9th grade as well. This is Carolyn.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for addressing that question.
I appreciate you putting in the chat, Nandita. That's helpful. That's good. Any other discussion or comments? Yes, Shelby?
I just had a quick question that might relate to other things we're going to talk about tonight, but I don't know whether or not this consent agenda item kind of opens the floodgates, so to speak, for relooking at novel assignments. It's been a few years since I feel like we actually looked at all approved novels and looked at where, like which grade levels they fall into. And I know that there's a perennial conversation among ELA teachers about kind of protecting the novels that are taught at their grade level so we don't have that overlap. And I wonder if that conversation is happening with the middle school and high school novel pilot, or if that is something that maybe needs to be considered.
Nikki, is that anything you could address, or do we need to get more information on that? Or
I think yes, in both. That we've had some discussions about moving novels from one grade level to another. Our focus has been on bringing in new novels to the middle school and high school classrooms and the alignment with the curriculum in those classrooms. But we haven't really dug into, do we need to move novels that are currently there? And that can be a part of the discussion down the road if that's what we want to do.
Thank you, Shelby.
Something I can add to what Nikki said is, at least at the high school level, we did have conversations with the lead teachers who are on that team about what novels are currently being taught at each high school. And so we do have current data and current information about what novels are being used across the district. And so that information kind of informed the decisions that were made about what novels we wanted to pilot. And then this is a different agenda item, but that we'll be bringing forward to this team for recommendation, just because that helped us to really get a look at what perspectives are currently being discussed with students in the ELA classroom and what perspectives are missing. So we're looking at what's currently being taught and adding information, but like Nikki said, we haven't had conversations as a district about whether or not to move texts. I will say that this particular grade level adjustment was brought forward, as you'll see in the memo, because it came to my attention that multiple as in 3 of 4 comprehensive high schools were already teaching Haroun and the Sea of Stories at freshman grade level as an in-building decision without bringing it to CMAC. And this was to make sure that every building and every student had access to that decision, and that we were following district policy.
Great, thank you for that additional information, Ashley. It's helpful. And Nandita asked, go ahead, Ashley.
I don't see any reason why that couldn't be shared. Nikki, do you?
No, I don't. I think that would be something that we could go ahead and share out.
Yeah.
I wonder if that might be helpful information to share in light of the list of novels. Does that make sense? So when we're looking at the approval for those novels during that meeting, if we could show this is what's being complemented, if that makes sense. Nandita, would that help answer your question?
Yes, exactly. That's actually the context in which I was asking it. When I was looking at the list of novels that we're looking at to read to approve, I was thinking, well, what are the other ones that are being looked at, and are we getting a balanced view, or do we have a lot of novels in kind of one category, so it's not holistically, maybe it's a great novel, but it doesn't make sense given we have 2 other novels that have a similar kind of concept. So yeah.
And I also wonder too, just for, I don't know how much data people want, but Nikki and I could definitely pull a list from the directory that shows how many novels are currently approved and how few of them are actually being taught, because there are quite a few novels that do present the same perspective that teachers are electing not to teach for that exact reason.
And we could certainly provide the list to CMAC members also about what we currently, the standard, the core at each grade level, and then there's a list of supplemental too. We can certainly provide that.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or discussion items around this topic? All right, seeing none, if you could show your thumbs up or your hand or whatever for approval of the consent agenda. So and then I'll ask for that first and then okay. All right, thank you. And is there anyone opposed? Okay, then the consent agenda item is approved. Thank you, everyone. All right, the next two items on the agenda are information presentations. So this next one flows nicely into our previous discussion because Nikki's going to present on our information item on high school, middle school ELA novel pilot. She will give you information to date of what the teams are doing and what they're working on, and then their upcoming timeline for approval later this year, which then at the end of the meeting, you will have the opportunity to sign up to read 2 novels in the next few months to help with this effort. It is probably the largest effort we've had in years to approve a whole core group of novels for our middle school and high school. So Nikki, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and thank you, Ashley, for starting us off with that discussion. I think it's a good lead into why we're doing this work. So I'm going to go ahead and share, and you had an update last spring. Let me just make this a slideshow. And so this is another update on where we're at with our novels adoption and where we hope to be, and then to get feedback from you guys. For example, having a complete list to give to you along with the titles that are already approved. That's something that we can certainly create and make sure that we get to you. So I just wanted to review the purpose of the ELA adoption and the purpose for the meeting or information given today. It's really, I want to provide an update on our secondary school ELA novel collection, curriculum reviews, and kind of review the process that we've been through and where we're hoping to go. And the update is going to include our team goals, our timeline, process steps, and future actions. When we're talking about our committee goal, if you were a part of CMAC last spring, you heard really our strategic target is all about creating a collection of core novels that represents the students and the communities that we serve. The text should include diverse representation of cultures, ethnicities, authorship, perspectives, and content. We're partnering with our RAJ department to help make sure that we're on the right track for representation for many populations. And then a part of our conversations is about representation, not of just oppression, but of joy, the good news, as well as the real news. So the ELA Novel Study Committee was identified to create varied representation and to select new titles that offer multiple perspectives, reflect underrepresented voices in our current curriculum, and provide opportunities for critical thinking and to build empathy for others and their lived experiences. One of the things that I wanted to highlight on this slide is that we do have representation across all of our middle schools, and also have included 17 committee members to pilot at the high school. And both of those groups, middle school and high school novel teams, we included librarians, EL and ML teachers, and we want to continue to collaborate with our RAJ, Racial and Educational Justice Department, along with our team at Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. So this has been a process. It's been one that started a couple years ago, and even for some of you guys who have been here for a while, even longer than that, the conversation has started. And really what we were thinking about is very similar to what was just asked. How do we make sure that across our grade levels in secondary, that we are offering a diverse perspective and representation in the novels that are being read and discussed? We wanted to make sure, and this was from the very beginning, that those novels contain relevant content and topics, that they show diverse characters, not just tokenism, that they had authentic voices telling the stories or messages, and also that they were of high interest to our students. We also wanted to make sure that we were following the guidelines that were available to us for that selection. So those were our criteria. And as we dug into the work, and this was last year's work and continues to be this year's work, we wanted to make sure that we had good data and evaluation tools, that we had a strong criteria for text selection, that we included throughout the whole process student voice, our students' opinions of the text, their perspectives, their recommendations, that we continue to analyze our student and teacher feedback. And throughout the process for our pilot teachers, we wanted to offer culturally responsive pedagogy techniques. So we've done some PD last year and this year for our teams to make sure that we're giving them tools to have conversations that stem from the reading of these novels. And then, of course, the identification of the novels. When we looked at the identification of the novels, we had a core team in both middle school and high school review the sites that were recommended on our RAJ website, look at what we're already teaching, who's represented and who's not, look at the alignment of content that's being taught in that grade level, and then chose the novels to be read by the pilot teachers and then used in the classroom to gather student feedback. So just as an overview of the process, May and June 2022, and this is just going back that far, we were looking at our goals and outcome. We wanted to review data and make sure that we had diverse authors and a teacher inventory along with the student interview comments on those books. We offered culturally competency PD. We wanted to walk through, and this was one of our starting points and will continue to be one of the points that we look at, our CMAC bias tools as we reviewed these novels. Then we also wanted to dig into studying problematic text, structures for teaching novels that could be used, and then finally to recommend the top text to be reviewed. Then we developed a summer reading list similar to the reading that you guys will soon be doing for our teachers. We wanted them to read the books and give feedback along with recommendations for pilots. So October and November of this year in the fall, we studied feedback from the summer reading book list, so the reading that happened on those texts, and then went ahead and set criteria for the novel selection process and utilize that criteria to identify books. And I'm going to just pop out of this slideshow for a minute. I wanted to give you a sample of what that looked like so that you can see the thoughtful process that this team used even to select the books for piloting. This is just a sample of one of the review forms that was used for a book that was reviewed. And we asked our team members to take a look at the book and then think about what we set as our criteria, the authenticity, and whether it met the criteria listed in there, along with what it includes, that definition of what that means. Diversity of community was another criteria that we were looking for, along with the sub features that we were looking for in that. Relevant subject matter was another one, and then scope and sequence considerations. Then there was an opportunity for this teacher to go ahead and give additional feedback on that novel. This occurred for each novel that was chosen to be reviewed for a possible pilot potential. So I'm going to go back to the slideshow. Using that, we created book summaries for the student voice input process, and we developed a plan for student voice input. At the middle school, it looked like asynchronous lessons that were given in the classrooms. We asked them to watch a video about what to look for, to get them information about the book, and then ask them to take a look at the book and do some reading on that. This is just a sample of a way that student voice was collected in those pre-pilot classrooms. So once we developed that plan for student voice and continued to read the novels, we decided that of the books that we were going to pilot, we needed to have a lesson plan template for each novel to be taught in the classroom. That template is still being created throughout the pilot process. And I wanted to show you a sample of what that looked like, not just for our pilot team, but to continue to build on for use for any teacher integrating that book into their classroom. So for example, Mouse is one of the books that we are piloting in our 8th grade level. For that book, we were asking our pilot teachers to not only give a summary of the text and the target skills, but also to start thinking about what questions are going to come up and what are some resources for the teachers to address those, and kind of prepare for those conversations that we hope, honestly, will happen in the classroom with some of these topics. So for example, essential questions for the text are listed here, but you can also see prior to reading the novel, there's a recommendation that we review this pyramid of hate lesson from one of the trainings that the teachers had. So have some conversations about how this novel and that pyramid of hate lesson coincide with each other and what can we learn from this. Then we also talked about potential academic language and glossary terms that we need to really review before we start teaching the novel, along with some things that could be of a resource for teachers that are using that novel, that processing journal preview of the novel, Mouse, that could be used in the classroom, some triggers that may happen throughout, and building that historical background. So for each book, our team has done quite a bit of work and continues to work on how do we present this novel in the classroom in a very thoughtful way. Then we also talked about preparing for the pilot with PD on navigating critical conversations. We had Paul from the Director of Education from the Holocaust Center come in and do a training. We've had the Tulalip tribe perspective and our Since Time Immemorial training offered to our ELA teachers, but we want to continue to do more of that type of training. And then also training from our RAJ department early in the process. PD is going to be a key piece of implementing these novels in the classroom. I'm going to go ahead and share the slideshow again. So as we're thinking about the work that is still to come, we're looking at this January through March timeframe, and I would even say into April for our high school teams. We're going to look at the unit templates, pilot the novels in the classrooms after we've notified the parents and the principals of the buildings using the unit templates. And this is where we're at right now. We're bringing our CMAC reviewers in. We wanted to do that early because it's really important that we get your feedback as well and give you an opportunity to really dig into the books, into the novels, and start doing reading of your own. And then in early April, we'll be doing a community and parent viewing night to allow them to give some feedback on the novels and input. Although when the novels are piloted in the classrooms, as we're doing that right now, parents are notified about which novel is being piloted and also have the opportunity to give feedback through the teacher. Once we've narrowed down the novels to be recommended to CMAC in May, we want to confirm that novel selection. This narrowing down, though, I'm going to go back to that first piece in March and April, will all be done through the collection of data from student and from pilot teachers. Then our next steps will be to start thinking about for new teachers to the pilot and any ELA teacher using the novels, the professional development that's going to be needed, along with the unit planning. So our hope is that our pilot will be complete April 27th, that we'll be making some recommendations before the review team through CMAC the time frame that they need to review the novels, and that final CMAC recommendation will be made in May. So you have, as a CMAC member in our folder, a list of all the books that we're looking at piloting by grade level in the high school, and then overall in the middle school. And this middle school list is also by grade level. We ask that you take a look at these novels and choose two that you would be willing to read between now and April, May timeframe, and to give us some feedback as you go through the novel as you're reading it. You can see that we're looking for lots of data sources to make our final recommendation. We looked to the teacher's survey for the current novel inventory, the student interview comments last year, student voice survey throughout this year, the teacher pilot survey, so the teacher's feedback, and now we're looking for our CMAC and parent feedback before we go to the final CMAC approval. That's the work for this year and the information to share. I just want to see if there's any questions before we move on.
Any questions? And people are signing up. I've seen their names. They're putting them in. Any questions for Nikki? Yes, go ahead. I'll start with Nancy.
I had to step away for just a second. Nikki, in your last flow chart, it said feedback and then final approval. So as we read these, are we filling out the F4 form right now or not?
I would say yes. Heather, would you also agree with that?
Yes.
I think that makes sense.
Yes, that makes the best sense, is to fill out as you read it, do the F4 form.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and submit, and then Kathy will keep track of them all, and then we'll go from there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then Janine, I think I saw your hand up.
I am wondering how I have read, I can make this promise to my own fourth grade students. And I'm wondering how these, and I know I have girls that are reading A Time to Dance. How are these being kind of preserved for the middle school when the elementary schools already have them in their libraries?
As a library selection, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We'll have to, I know what we've done in the past is we've kind of targeted, as Ashley was sharing just recently with her consent agenda item, targeted novels for certain grade levels. And that could be something that we look at doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think also one thing to kind of keep in mind is that there's always value to rereading a text. So if a student's reading something independently, that's amazing. And then when they reread that text in a whole class setting or in a literature circle setting, they're going to have a different experience, and then they'll be able to enrich classroom discussion. And so I don't think that it's bad at all for kids to have early introductions to texts that are on the list. I think it's great that they'll be seeing things that are written by amazing authors of color, by incredible women authors. Like, I think it's great for them to see those things valued in a classroom as something that's worthy of a whole class novel discussion.
Other questions from the group?
I had a question.
Is it just one, when we're signing up, is it just one person per title?
Yes, I think when we did our number, I think we calculated, Nikki, you'll have to help me. We had this figured out. There was 30 some novels and there was 17 of us, close to 16 or 17. So we just thought everybody would read two. We won't be able to read the same. I don't think we're going to be able to have two reviewers per novel. Was that correct, Nikki?
That sounds correct, but I would encourage you if you like to read and you want to read more than two, feel free. And I would also add, many of these novels we found are on Learning Ally, so as an audio book, and available to us if that's a format that you prefer. Then also, once you've signed up, our Christy Frank in our department and I will make sure that you get a copy of that novel sent to you, or you can pick it up. And if there's a different format that you'd like besides a hard copy, please let us know.
Thank you.
I would also would also like to add, yes, a CMAC reviewer, at least one per novel. But remember, you're going to have a teacher or two giving feedback along with that. Our core team has really reviewed these novels very, very thoroughly. And then also student feedback, class or two from students, along with our parents having the opportunity to give feedback throughout the pilot.
I have a question. I
Yes.
noticed, not sure, I mean, I might struggle with how to present this. It might be not quite, I don't know, politically correct, but I noticed that a lot of the novels are very, I mean, and I understand and appreciate that they're very much about the diversity of views. There's a lot of minority representation. Is that kind of the goal of this particular selection of, I just forgive me if I missed that. Like, is the purpose to call out and get that representation added to the curriculum, as opposed to maybe, for example, like updating, maybe not the minority, like just updating the, for lack of a better word, majority perspective? Like, does that make any sense?
It made sense to me. So yeah, and yes, that is correct. We have many different perspectives represented in the novels, or I don't want to say many, but we have some perspectives represented in the novels that we currently have, but we do need a more diverse choosing of perspectives represented in the classroom.
Okay. All right. I think what would complete my kind of view of the novels as a whole is that list that I think I was asking about before, to just see, it would just makes more sense in my mind. This seems like a very, it's a sliver, and it helps to kind of understand the context in which, the holistic context. But I do understand that, like, for our review, we're looking at just this novel and its representation of characters and so forth. So I do understand that aspect of it in terms of the review being asked of us.
And we will make sure we get that list out to everybody. So we will send that out. Should be able to get it in the next week or so. So we'll get that out to you guys. Any other questions or comments for Nikki?
Nikki, I was wondering about the timeline that you want the novels read and then feedback.
Yeah, so we need the F4 forms to Kathy, and Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, a month before our May presentation. So it would be April 6th, I believe.
Yes, April 10th.
10th.
April 10th, we'll need the CMAC reviewers back. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone else had their hand up. Carolyn.
Yeah, so I understand we're filling out the F4 form after we read the book, but Nikki, and forgive me, I'm forgetting the wording, but in your slideshow, you talked about the things that the teachers were specifically looking for, like interest to kids, just like sort of the value of the literature, like it's specifically, are teachers looking to teach certain types of things as well? Like, can we have, I don't know, like, not that I want to do more, but like access to what it was teachers were looking for, so that when we review, we can use that also kind of as part of our judgment, I guess, of the, does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I can absolutely share that template with you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, our goal is to give you as much information as you need, so. But we don't want to overwhelm you either, but yes, anything you think you need, we can provide that.
Yeah, I just would kind of like to like read over that so that it's kind of in my mind when I'm reading it. And I'll notice those things a little bit more if I'm already have that kind of checklist.
Yeah, we can provide that also. We'll get that sent out as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it helps to understand the lens that teachers are using to view the book, to understand, okay, I can see that being used in that way, as opposed to taking my own lens, which I, maybe that's just not what the intent is at all. And so it's definitely helpful to have to frame the reading in that way. So thanks.
Yeah, it's great. Great suggestions and great comments. Thank you. Anything else?
Sorry, one more question. I noticed that there was a specific grade assigned for the novels. If there's any feedback as far as like whether or not it's maybe you would be recommended for a different grade, or is that feedback that we can provide as well, or should that just be included kind of in the general comments on the F4?
We definitely want that feedback. And I think if you put it in the general comments on the F4, we'll see that. But feel free to email me or Heather, and then we'll also have that.
Yep, you bet. All right. Given no other hands raised or questions, thank you, Nikki, for the presentation, the informational presentation. Thank you to all of you for signing up for reading a couple novels. So work with Kathy. She can either like Nikki said, some of them are available on Learning Ally, but we have also purchased them. So Kathy, will you be getting those sent out, or will you like people to contact you? What's best for you?
I'll work with Nikki and Christy, and we'll go ahead and get those sent out to everybody. I'll interoffice those that I can. And I know like with Nandita, I usually send it to Woodville and she picks it up from her daughter. And so we make it work.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our next informational item on our agenda was one that got rescheduled from last time, but is on Edgenuity. And Katie Bjornstad is here, maybe, to present. Yes, there she is. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi. How's everybody?
Doing
Sorry,
good.
my
So
wrist is good now. I
oh,
broke it
good.
last month. So
yes, you were out having surgery. So we're glad you're back, and you are going to give us informational update around Edgenuity, which is you presented on last year, and this is a time to come and present information thus far. So go ahead, Katie.
all right. I put the I'm sorry, my slide deck is not super pretty. I did put the link into the chat box so you can click on the links if you need to. All right. So I presented, I think it was last year at some point. And two of the questions that were asked, and one I wasn't positive, I was about something about students and staff. Here, I have it right here. Experience and ease of use for students and staff. So I can take questions on that at the end. Honestly, I was reading through the notes and I wasn't exactly sure what that was about. So I'm really going to address right now accessibility and supports for students in special education and English learner students, and then diversifying representation in the curriculum. I'm not going to read all this, but last year, prior to getting this all, I think we were in the approval process. Dr. Reed tasked myself and Megan Bernicki in starting the virtual program. So we did a lot of stuff in a really quick time, but what was amazing was how successful, and then how much more I learned about what we could do to support students. So just a little background in this, and NOAA has this currently, we call it the mentor model. So we have North Shore School district teachers. They oversee a group of students, and then they're actually taught in the virtual program, not in credit retrieval, which sometimes is confusing, is that they're taught by Edgenuity teachers. But then they also have a case manager if they're in special education who is a North Shore teacher. And then we have an ML teacher, multilingual teacher, also there to support our students who are English language learners. So with that, we were able to adopt a process that really supported our students in special education and our EL students. However, I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I'm sorry, my screen's over here if I'm looking away, is that I wanted to talk about specific things. What I'm really excited about is some of the items. Edgenuity sent out a survey, I think it was last year, maybe the end of the year before, and they asked for our feedback on how we could support our students at various levels, mainly in special education. And I really appreciated it because they took that feedback and ran with it. Prior to a couple of years ago, teachers wouldn't have a lot of access as far as like they could take an assessment, but they couldn't do a lot of stuff with the actual assessment. So what they did is teachers can now go in and, like, for example, reduce distractors on assessments, which means they reduce the amount of answers in a question. Maybe instead of 5 answers, they might have 3. They may be able to reduce the questions on an assessment based on their student. They can individually customize that. They can hide timers, like especially we know timers sometimes causes stress for many kids. And then what's really cool is Edgenuity also has a special education coordinator. And so they also support in making sure that the curriculum and everything is lined up for that kiddo. So we upload an IEP in a glance, and they look at those and they make sure all the teachers, if they're using an Edgenuity teacher, is following up and making sure that the student has what they need and the supports that they need. The other 2 pieces that we utilize quite a bit was MyPath. MyPath, think of it as like an iReady, but for older kids. We only use iReady up to 8th grade, but we have definitely some students, whether they're ML in special education or even general education, that have missed some concepts. So we can give the students a MyPath assessment. It's in reading and math. And it creates an individual, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Sometimes I just go all over the place, but basically it creates an individual education plan for them. And what we did last year and we're doing this year is you can come for a student in special education on an IEP and specific math or reading goals. We can combine this with like Algebra 1, and it's like it is an inclusionary model. We can use it for any student to see where their gaps in their learning are. What we found is a lot of times like it's in decimals or fractions. So that's really helpful. And I have some more examples of this. Our guided notes, closed captioning during video, and then pause and rewind videos are chunked for improved comprehension. I always tell people that I really struggled with math growing up, and I wish I could have rewinded my teacher to explain things clear, because I felt like the class went really fast and and then it made me feel silly to raise my hand when I thought everybody else was getting it. I think especially for kids that certain subjects cause anxiety or they feel like they're getting lost, this is really nice because they do rewind it and they can rewatch a concept. All right. For our language learners, in addition to all the tools that I just listed that we can use for our students in special education, and we can use some of these tools for any of our kids, we also have a translation tool. This is actually getting better. They keep improving this as the technology is getting better. At the beginning, only the transcript, and I'll show an example of this in a future slide, only the transcript could really be translated. So the person in the video speaking English, the transcript could be put in their own language. Typically the closed captioning wasn't in their language. Closed captioning now is in Spanish and I believe one other language. I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head, but they're trying to incorporate more of those languages in the closed captioning. However, in any directions or like tests, and I'll show another slide on that, is that they can highlight it and it'll read it in their language. So there's been a lot of progress made with this with the company. I think it's just more of a technology catching up with that. And I know I'm talking fast because I have a lot in 50 minutes. This is where some of the links, I'm not going to sit here. Like you guys can go through. This is really helpful. There's a short video if you want to know what guided notes are. I'm just going to pull these guided notes up really quick so you can see what they look like. Can everybody see the guided notes on my screen? These are great. They created these about 2 years ago. And when Amity and I were working with our high cap kiddos, they're in 6th grade math, and then in, let's see, they jump ahead 2 grades. So 6th grade and 7th grade math. And one thing that we learned with the littles is that they needed a little bit more support and like note taking because it was a little bit more independent in their learning. And so Amity and I took these and we printed them out for our students. The next thing that's coming up in Edgenuity is these are fillable, which is really nice. But they go directly with what the teacher in the video is talking about. And so we got great feedback from the parents of our high cap kids who were using these, that these were really, really helpful for them. We started using them last year with our students in special education. Again, super helpful. And we are ML teacher started using them with her students too, because it's obviously a visual organizer and it helps the students keep track of their notes more so than just writing down notes, especially some kids don't know how to do that. Okay, are we back on my slide deck? Just double checking. Perfect. Thank you, Heather. I can see you nodding. All right. So again, those are guided notes. The My Path, again, we can use that as an intervention. They go as low as 3rd grade. And I've talked to kiddos about this. Sometimes they can get pretty bummed out if they're like a 10th or 11th grader and they're testing into a 3rd grade level in math. And I'll just use math as an example. I always just tell them that it's probably because they missed a concept. And as soon as I say fractions and or decimals, they're like, oh yeah, that's the one. So it's really nice because they can kind of go back and learn those basic core lessons again. And then it's amazing because it builds up their confidence. And I use this when I was in Edmonds as well. It just really builds up their confidence. And because they finally like, oh, I can do math. And I really like this program because it's typically if you have a 3rd grade curriculum, it's going to be cartoony and too little for them. This is not cartoony at all. It's talking to them at their level. It's not talking down at them. So for them, most kids, especially in high school who tested a lower grade level, really like this because again, builds up the confidence. They learn that, they learn some of that foundational pieces, and then they're not struggling as much in their regular math class. Or if they have a math goal in special education, we combine this with a gen ed class to support them as well. I am talking really fast. Does anybody have any questions really quick? And these are my examples of translation tools. We good so far? Okay. As you can see, if they put the speaker right here, if I already put this in Spanish so they can read it, but I know one of the concerns last time was if their literacy level in their home language wasn't very strong, they can click on this and it'll read all the questions and the answers to them in their language, which is really neat. They can choose a language in the upper right-hand corner up here. I put it in Portuguese. And as the teacher's reading or talking, they can read along with them. And then also they can continue using closed captioning, which I stated before that they're working on putting that in other languages, which is helpful. All right. The other question that I was asked about was diversity, and they've worked really hard. I just went to their national conference not that long ago. And it was really nice because they had a lot of sessions about this, and our keynote speakers talked a lot about equity. I put the entire this is like the link to Imagine Ingenuity, diversity, equity, and inclusion is probably like a 7-page document, but I didn't think we were going to do that. So we're just going to read kind of the highlights of what the concerns were the last time I came. So I thought that this was great. Westchester Educational Services, and I've done a few webinars with them as well. They did an independent audit of the courses to see where Edgenuity needed to improve their curriculum. So they did that. And so they're removing instances of gendered language, increasing the representation of the LGBTQ plus community, removing instances of stereotypical depictions, increasing representations of women, removing instances of isolation and fragmentation, and increasing the perspectives of marginalized communities. So they did that. But then they also did a few other things, which I know came up when some of the teachers on the committee were looking. Like, for example, there was predominantly white teachers, there was predominantly male teachers, things like that. I have noticed when I've been viewing videos either with kids or students that they've done a lot better at updating this. So as you can see, they've updated the on-screen teachers, who the adults are engaged in professional activities. So it's not just, you know, a white doctor or a very stereotypical kind of person in a profession. And then also subject matter experts and people like that. And so this just gives you kind of some examples of that. And then this is what the future they're continuing to do. And again, not going to read that, but one of the things I brought up the last time that I presented, which I think is a really important piece about working with, they call it Imagine Learning now, but it's Imagine Learning Edgenuity. One thing that I really appreciate about them is that how quickly they can go in and fix things and then take your feedback. For example, when I was a principal in Edmonds eLearning, I had a student email me, a student of color who had graduated like a year before, and she emailed me and she said, something has been bothering me since I graduated. She had taken a class with us and she had never said anything, and I can't even remember which class it was, maybe a history or ELA. And they goofed up who they had a golfer or something. They were talking about a golfer or something, and they put Venus Williams on there. And that really bothered her, which it should have. And so I reached out, I forwarded the email to the people I know that I work with it through Edgenuity, like our tech people. And I just thought they would send me a copy of like, yeah, thank you for your inquiry, we appreciate it, or something. They had that fixed within, I think, a day, maybe 2 days, that they had replaced that picture and fixed it, sent all kinds of like, oh my gosh, sent an email directly to that student. So I really appreciate, because we can't do that with textbooks. When we own a textbook, we own the textbook, but I do really appreciate that they really do try very hard to take student and educator feedback seriously. So they're continually working on that, I think, as other companies are, but so far I've been really impressed with what they've been doing and what the changes that they've made. So that's all I have. The only other question I had was experience and ease of use for students and staff. And again, I wasn't quite sure, and I was looking back through the notes exactly what that meant. So if people remember, that's great. I can answer that question. Any questions? Thanks. Sorry, I talked really fast.
Do you want to unshare your screen now and then we can see people? I can see.
Yes, I can stop sharing. I don't think anybody needs to see the
Thank you.
question box.
Yes, questions for Katie.
Katie, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the advocacy and the work about figuring out how they could be more inclusive and make things more accessible for students. The changes to help our students who are learning multiple languages is a lot better. I have a lot less reservations about this being the district path for how students are accessing teachers. And so I feel a lot better. So thank you for reaching out to them and for reporting back on this. Thank you.
Oh, you are very welcome. And I will say they're very responsive in helping me with this too.
Which is the mark of a good customer service department.
It is. That's, people say anything, but it's like, I want somebody that responds pretty quickly.
Any other questions for Katie?
Wow, I wowed you that much. Yay.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. No, that's good. Thank you for the follow-up and coming back and giving us the information that was requested. So we appreciate that. Thank
No
you for your
problem.
time.
And right now, again, we're just using Edgenuity really 6 through 12. We tried elementary last year. It was okay. Some of the teachers really liked it. So if we do have a need for elementary in the future, I may be back, but at least for 6 through 12, this pretty much just, this covers it. So
great.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That was all of our information items for this evening. We have 2 presentations for approval. They're actually combined into one presentation because it is from the same sponsor that Jen Liggett, who is a social studies teacher at North Creek High School, who has been working with Nikki and other teachers on recommendations for civics curriculum and for our core curriculum for civics that impacts mostly our seniors here in North Shore through our government classes. Nikki, is Jen here yet? Are we ready to go?
Yep,
There
I
she
see
is.
her
Hi,
beautiful
Jen.
face right here, and Jen will be sharing the presentation. I just wanted to add that it has been our team of civics teachers that have made this recommendation, and Jen is a brave soul to present.
Great. Thank you, Jen. It's nice to have you here. You've been here before, so I'll go ahead and we'll have you begin and share your screen. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. This has definitely been a team effort, and there's some context involved. And so this has been kind of a while in the making, and I'm just going to go ahead and put myself on slideshow here. Let me know if anything is looking odd on your end. Let's see, there we go. Okay. And do let me know if you have questions too, because we do basically have 2 asks. We have a renewal request, and then we have a new resource approval request, but it's happening within a larger context. We really are wanting to open up the resources that we're using in civics. And so I wanted to put everything together so that you could see, okay, if we get these pieces in place, what would the full picture look like then? Because as social studies teachers, we do use bits and bubbles and this from here and that from there, and try to make sure that we are putting things together so that we can use things like inquiry teaching and universal design for learning and things that do require being able to branch out and give some students some starting points for research questions and all of those kinds of things. So that's going to be addressed a little bit too. Here's just kind of who's involved in the paperwork there. And then this is in response to state law. So back for the 2020-2021 school year, the state required that we have a standalone semester civics course. And so we did some reorganizing around that. But they also gave us this list of this real laundry list of things that we needed to be able to get through. And our current resources, which are Government Alive and since time immemorial, Government Alive deals with information on a federal level, but it doesn't address things like state or tribal or local government organizations and procedures. It's a national publication, so it doesn't do any of the local that we are required by state law to do. And
So that was an issue. We also have state law since time immemorial that is approved curriculum in the North Shore School District, critical for us to continue to use and support. So just for the purposes of context, we wanted to make sure that that remained front and center because it really is important to our classes. But if you need references to the Senate bill number or the OSPI page, they are all there also if you're not as familiar. So we wanted to make sure that that was front and center as well. So we started taking a look at the resources and saying, well, we know that all these things are not covered. So what do we do? And we know that Government Alive doesn't address all the things that are on our list. We do have the approved curricula from STI, and we have a growing bank of resources. We've been collaborating with Tulalip tribes to come up with more personalized and tailored resources for our school district. But we still don't have state or local resources. And so we got a team together to start going through, okay, well, what's available then? So we, of course, came up with a bazillion things because we're social studies teachers and we have to. It's in the DNA somewhere. And we wanted to bundle them together for you so that it wasn't piecemeal. It was a full plate. You know, here it is all together. So this is what we're proposing as a bundle, that we have a renewal of the Government Alive, because that is still a really useful resource for federal level things, that we continue our commitment to since time immemorial and deepen our commitment to since time immemorial and continue with professional development for teachers and our work with the Tulalip tribes, and that we adopt the state we're in, Washington, which is a state level publication, really broad-based, lots of different communities. It's a little timeliney in some areas and then goes into civics issues. We also have open educational resources. That's the rest of what's here. iCivics and iCivics Washington. Khan Academy is already approved. Choices is already approved. And then OSPI resources as listed. And then we as civics teachers got to list out all the lovely things that we also would like to see available to classrooms. So, why so much? Why do we need all that? Because it really is best practice to have options and to be able to give students skill building opportunities. We didn't want just textbook. We wanted activities, which the Government Alive is good for. We wanted podcasts. We wanted articles that they could go to. We wanted videos that they could watch. We wanted them to be able to pick from different media off of a topic so that they could find things that were at an appropriate reading level for them, that were maybe a little bit more complicated if they were up for it, maybe a little bit more scaffolded if they needed it. We just wanted a wider variety of roads into civics, so that there were a better range of points of entry for the course. We also wanted to be flexible and responsive to our classrooms, and we wanted community transparency. We wanted to make sure that we were transparent about what we were helping students to find, and we wanted to include a wider range of voices in our classrooms. So those were our priorities. So taking a look at the materials, there's a little bit here on Government Alive. It is a digital curriculum and it is updated regularly online. So in some ways it's kind of like a hybrid between a textbook situation and a database kind of a situation. So they are updating. They did just make a bunch of updates to the online curriculum. The actual print textbook is a supplement to the digital resources. And so we would still want to have a print, like a class set of print copies per school, so that we could distribute them to students that really do benefit from having a print copy. Some students have that written into their IEP, that they need a print copy. We want a couple in the library. We want a couple for EL. We want, a few different options for the kids around the building that might need them, but then have most students working within the digital environment. So that is Government Alive. And then these are some of the bells and whistles that come with the online. They have lesson guides. They've got tips and tools for differentiating instruction. You can go in and you can pick and choose questions that you want to ask. You can tailor activities the way that you want them. There are all kinds of little toolkits. There's translations into Spanish, and it's not the Google Translate. It's an actual human being that's translating into Spanish. They very much wanted us to know that, so I feel obligated to pass it on. But that is critical, that you have somebody who actually is a speaker of the language who is doing your translations. So that was a plus for us. So we are requesting a renewal because it's been over a decade since that was originally looked at, and it's obviously changed. So we just wanted to bring it forward again and make sure that we had digital resources for students and a class set of hard copies for each school. So that is the ask there. And then these are some more info on bells and whistles and things, some of the updated stuff that they've done in the last decade. Because we all know, this last decade, there's been a ton that's happened in the digital realm. And there are so many more options that are available now than were 10 years ago. And they have definitely taken advantage of a lot of them. So wanted to list some of those out. Core, again, since time immemorial, it is state law, and it is a critical resource for our students. And so it's already approved. So I'm happy to answer questions about it and talk about it, but we don't need to discuss it in terms of whether or not to approve it because it is already there. But it is something that we do need to continue with professional development and support for our relationship too, because we're still evolving the curriculum that we're working on with Tulalip. And this is just going into, okay, so within that, what's coming from OSPI and what's coming from Tulalip. So this is kind of detailing out some of the things that OSPI provides and what they're saying on their site, and then some of the things that are happening with Tulalip and with our partnership with Tulalip. And we did have a disruption there for a while COVID was happening. So many things were disrupted, and this is one of them. So we are in the process of reestablishing our partnership and really kind of relaying and reframing some of the groundwork, but are really excited to see it moving forward. So that is our core. What we would like to request and what we're seeking approval for is the state we're in, Washington, which is published by League of Women Voters. And back when I started in 2005, there were old, I think it was like 3rd or 4th edition copies of this floating around in the junior high. So this may be a familiar sight to some of the teachers around. I'm not quite sure what the process was on that, but I never happened to teach out of it. But I've got a couple of old copies around, but they are on their 8th edition now. They've got an elementary edition, and they also have a secondary edition. The secondary edition is at a 7th grade reading level. And so it's quick, easy read for our high schoolers who just want, okay, here's the situation. Now, how can I go and apply that? So I can read a quick little thing on state government, and then I can visit wa.gov, and I can start looking up at, okay, well, how does that actually work? So it's a good resource for launching into inquiry projects. And it's a nice structured support for students that might need the simpler language read. So that's a big positive. And they've done a lot of reworking of their structure so that they are more friendly to inquiry questions and inquiry design, so that even if you get through pretty quick, the intent is that you don't stop there. You move on and you take what you've learned from a particular chapter and move along to whatever it is that you're using your inquiry to direct you towards. And the nice thing is it's free. And it's also translated into Spanish and Mandarin. So there are a couple of extra language versions, which is a big plus. Oops, sorry, blipped forward a little further than I intended to. But I've got links here. I think Nikki put them in for all of the different chapters. So you can see the topics that they cover. So it goes from pre-colonization, First Peoples, and more kind of what are some traditional styles of government, which is kind of interesting to look at next to tribal websites and what they say about, and there was a lot of consultation with our federally recognized tribes to decide what to put in to that chapter too. Today's democracy, creating Washington's government, governing Washington today. We don't just stay in the past here. We do tribal governments today, which is critical. And then local government with counties, cities, towns. This is kind of what is most useful is the Governing Washington Today. We've got STI, but this is a nice supplement. And then counties, cities, towns, and special districts. Those are things that are required for us to teach by state law. We do have some web resources that we can look to, but this is nice because it's all in one place. So those are there if you would like to browse. This is an online simulation collection that was launched by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor back in 2009, and it's now kind of shepherded by Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And there are all kinds of games and lessons, and the kids do. I mean, they enjoy going and checking it out. But there's also a game in a civics library and professional development pieces for teachers if there are topics that you might not know a whole lot about. So that's a nice convenience. There are Washington specific lessons too. There's one that compares and contrasts the US Constitution with Washington's Constitution and helps delineate what the differences are between those two documents. Khan Academy, already approved. So I don't know that I need to go into that very much. Choices, you heard my song and dance last year. So if you'd like to hear it again, I can whip out the cane. But we don't probably need to go through, but it is a nice part of the overall package. There are specific lessons in there that are civics oriented that we would want to kind of claim for our 12th graders. And then this is where we start getting into, these are the resources that have been specifically called out by OER and by OSPI. So Nikki has graciously put in DRRs for all of these, and they are lists of things that have been collected together by the social studies cadre and the civics cadre at OSPI, and kind of overseen by Jerry Price with the help of Walter Parker. So these are collected together through their resources. And last but certainly not least, the civics teachers brought all of their favorites out of the woodwork and listed them together into a resources library. So the thinking is that, and DRRs are in for this. So the thinking is that they kind of follow unit by unit they follow down the list of what OSPI and what state law is asking for. And we did add a couple of things like a few media literacy components, and weirdly enough, the state law doesn't ask anything about territories or Washington, D.C., but we all kind of teach it. So we put in some resources around territories in Washington, D.C. as well. But we've got some general resource library here, and then it goes power foundations of government, which is the first thing the state asks for, legislative branch, political parties, executive branch. So it covers all of the different aspects of state law that need to get covered. So we've got elections in here, judicial branch is in here. Oye and Justia are Supreme Court cases. Places where you can find little kid-friendly write-ups on Supreme Court cases, sovereign nations, kind of working with and supplementing some of the STI and work with Tulalip. So there's a lot in there. And we try to put forward a mix, things that were readings, things that were videos, things that were podcasts, things that were, all kinds of different approaches to learning. So there's USGS. So what is a Commonwealth versus a territory? What does that look like? What is the deal with Washington, D.C.? And then state of Washington is here, counties and special districts, municipal. And then this is another thing that I thought was weird that it wasn't included in Government Alive was the naturalization test. So, and that is required by state law. So we pulled together a bunch of stuff from USCIS, Department of Homeland Security, and some of the Seattle Public Library has some fantastic resources on citizenship help. So they even have a set of flashcards that I've given out to many students. So they've got all kinds of different stuff that we might be able to make use of. So that's kind of the full walkthrough. Again, the ask is that we would be doing core materials, Government Alive, and supplemental materials the state we're in, but wanted to make sure that we communicated out what we were envisioning the full suite to look like when it's all put together. Phew. That's
Jen,
my
thank you so much. I just want to add, so oftentimes with a class like civics or many high school classes, we go to these resources online, maybe a state or a government resource or a place to get current events. And we don't necessarily go through the right process. So what we talked about is, let's think about what resources we would be accessing as not a supplemental CMAC approval requirement, but as a resource that could be accessed that we need to go through our technology department to get approval for through the district resource review. And so we have that list, and we're working, and I would say that they have not all been submitted for DRR yet, but we're working through that process with our technology department.
Mm-hmm. But that list does include things like the Tulalip page on treaties and self-governance, which, yeah, I mean, if you're going through, I pull from STI a reading on what sovereignty is, then we look at the Tulalip page. You know, it feels like that should be required reading. So, you know, having those kinds of things, having gone through the DRR process, the transparency piece, bringing it forward, we felt like it was an important thing to try to collect together and communicate out and make sure that we were kind of putting on one page.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Jen and Nikki, very thorough presentation. I want to open it up to questions and comments. So if you want to unshare your screen for a moment, and then if we need to go back to it, we certainly can if there's a question. But there are a couple approval items there, but they kind of put them together in one package, bundled. So we can take them together or we can split them apart depending on how the motion is made. So Nancy.
Can I ask a question about the government, the Alive one?
Yes.
So is one set per building? Do you have multiple teachers teaching civics and most of you use the online, or is that
Yes.
an adequate ask?
What we would like to go back to is having digital resources for students, but because we did, when we originally adopted, have a multi-year subscription, but the subscription lapsed. And since that, with COVID, and so it's been kind of lost for a bit. And so what we're asking is for a reassessment, reapproval, repurchase to kind of reset. And then students would have the digital copy, because there are a lot of things that are available in the digital copy. The print really is a supplement. It's a collection of the readings is what it is. And there aren't any questions in it. There aren't any directions in it. It's just the readings that are part of the overall package. So it is important for us to be able to offer a print copy to students, but it wouldn't be something on a cart moving from classroom to classroom. It would be the students that have a need for a print resource to have one checked out to them, possibly to have at home or carry back and forth, to have a couple in an LC classroom, to have one or two in the library. So it would be for kind of like an all school resource rather than one per kid.
Perfect. And then my other question, since there are, would part of this adoption be then removing the 887 copies of the decade-old book from our collection to ensure that kids are having access to the most current materials? Would that be part of this, or I'm not sure quite.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that doesn't get overlooked in this excitement of a nice new vibrant and relevant resource, that we make sure those leave the premises.
Agree. And that would be Nikki, maybe you could speak to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, that would be a part of the process, and we would have to work with our school teams to surplus those.
I'm seeing a request in the chat as well that I share the list of resources with all of the stuff that I was showing towards the end. So I'm going to do that really quick. But if there are any other questions, then please do ask.
And did you, because part of, if we're asked to approve this, part of was the budget. So Nikki, is that budget component there and available to make this happen? Or
yeah, it's a part of that. We did include that on the presentation, and the
I'm sorry if I missed that. I was trying so hard to pay attention to
Oh, no,
everything.
no. And Jen did such a great job of going through that presentation. So we would have to renew Government Alive one way or another, either the newer version or not. And so that is something that we budgeted for. And then the state we're in is an OER resource of online resource with no charge.
Exactly. That's the one I reviewed. And so I didn't review the other one, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What I'm doing is I'm putting a link to the entire presentation in the chat. So anybody that wants to look at any part of it, and you're always welcome to email me follow-up questions. If you think of them tomorrow, you can always send them my way as well. And the resource that I was adding was towards the end. So if you were specifically looking for that little library of online resources, then that's towards the end of the larger deck. It's in there, it's linked. It's got the budget information on it too. So the money part isn't my favorite, so I didn't spend as much time on it, but clearly it's critical. So we'll make sure that you have those numbers. Oh, thank you for adding it to the folder. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Are there any other questions, or is someone
Well, I was just going to ask oh, I'm sorry, Ashley, I totally saw your hand up.
I'm happy to wait. Go ahead.
Is there going to be PD from TCI, or is it unnecessary because it's kind of similar to what you've used before?
We are fortunate enough that the TCI rep lives in our district. So yes, I don't know, or at least that would be my hope. I don't know exactly what would be involved in scheduling that. Nikki, you looked like you were about ready to jump in on it.
No, I've talked to our representative already about that, and we definitely need the PD to happen because even though all of our civics teachers were invited to be a part of the process and many showed up, not all could be there when she presented, and we want PD throughout the year on how to use that. But also along with that, we offered in October PD through our Tulalip Tribe cohort coordinator, Marjorie James, and we had some parents and some students there. The feedback for that was just incredible. We need to continue that, so that will continue each year, hopefully.
Since Time Immemorial first launched, the OSPI hosted a series of trainings in collaboration with the federally recognized tribes that are within our state. And there were several of us that went to this training or that training. I know I went to mine up at the Hebel Cultural Center back when STI was rolling out. But Dr. Laura Lynn, who is the person that was in charge of the trainings, has retired. And so they are currently without somebody to run the trainings. So it really is critical that we think about professional development ourselves and that we continue our collaboration with Tulalip. And we started that process again this year. So it is something that we're really wanting to maintain and make sure continues to be on the radar screen as we move forward, because it really is an important part of what we need to be doing, not only in civics, but in all of our grade levels.
Hi. I just wanted to ask again about the budget because I looked in the presentation, didn't see any costing. So where would I find that information?
Let's see. Is it okay if I share again? Share screen.
I see it on slide 30.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm just gonna pull that up really fast. 30. Thank you for the number. Here we go. Need my computer to catch up. There we go.
And are these funds, have they already been budgeted, or is this something that would be a new request?
They were budgeted as a part of the pilot for this year.
Okay.
And the state we're in is a free resource. And then along with the Government Alive, when we look at this, the PD is included with that renewal of the subscription.
Okay, so that would have to be a consideration for budget development then.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ashley, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to say thank you for providing all the information as part of a package. I think it was really helpful for me to see these two requests aligned with everything else that's already being used. I also really appreciated the forward thinking about how the materials that are put together can be used as part of UDL and making sure that they're accessible to all of our students and not just the general general education population. And I also really appreciated the intentional commentary around access for multilingual students. So thank you for including all of those things ahead of time and being ready to answer questions about that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's a huge part of our day.
Other questions or comments? I can't, Jen, if you could unshare your screen again.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you being able to flip back and forth readily. So.
There we go.
All right. Are there other questions for consideration, or is someone wanting to make a motion to approve these resources?
May I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Only
always.
coming from the middle school with the state we're in, are we approving access for both levels? Because I think I just previewed the one level that the link was sent to me.
I think that was the plan. Yeah. And there is also, and again, as a free online resource, grades 3 to 5 version too. So that's just basically the same information. It's just the language is simplified a little bit further. So I think it'd be a great, here's a continuation. They can hit some of it in 4th. They can hit some of it in 7th. They can hit some of it in 12th. They'll recognize the resource, but they, being at a different age, you'd get a different thing out of it every time. And as a 12th grader, you could take it and run with it more than you might when you're getting a first look introduction as a 7th grader taking the government unit within your Washington State history course.
Yep, I just wanted hoping for access to that lower level, because for some of my students that I work with at the middle school, that's the right place for them to jump in. And then maybe as they get a little more secure, they could move on up and tackle a little bit higher reading level. So perfect. Thank you.
Is there anybody willing to make a motion to approve?
Okay, I'm gonna try. First of all, Jen, that was awesome. It's like making me think, oh, do I want to go teach 12th grade? That's so exciting. Exciting. One quick question before I make the motion. Both are core, or is the state we're in supplementary?
So we kind of went back and forth on that one a little bit, and we ended up letting it land in supplemental just to kind of keep our core a little bit more streamlined and focused. But it could easily, because it's a free resource, it doesn't have as big of a budget impact. So would I probably eventually want to get at least a dozen copies for my school for those same readers that might need something? That's probably yes, but that is something that's more affordable to come out of a school budget rather than being something that's more spendy like the government alive, because that is a full system, so it's a little bit more of a commitment. But the state we're in is super handy, and it's free, and it covers a bunch of great stuff and is available on all these different levels.
And I'm going to put, and it looks like maybe Jessica already put the request in the chat room. So this is from the last slide.
Okay.
This is what we're hoping for approval for, that Government Alive the updated version of Government Alive be approved as core materials for civics classes. That again will affirm that since time immemorial, will continue to be core curriculum for, and since time immemorial is elementary through 12th grade. And then we're requesting that 3rd through 12th grade, the state we're in, Washington, can be approved for supplemental use.
Okay. Okay, I will try. I move to approve the updated Government Alive digital curriculum for approval as core materials for all civics classes. And to affirm to continue to commit to STI and our partnership with the Tulalip tribes, and to approve the state we're in, Washington, for supplemental use in social studies classes 3rd through 12th grade. Is that everything? Okay.
This is Nancy Dodson. I'll second.
And this was Carolyn who moved.
Carolyn, yes, Carolyn. Thank you, Carolyn, for taking that on, and thank you, Nancy, for seconding it.
I have a clarifying question. So does this mean that we're committing the district to spend funds on the government curriculum? So I don't think that we can really do that because it really needs to come, as part of our budget development process.
Yes, and
I don't want people to think that we're going to say, yes, we all approve it, and then we're obligating.
Yes, I was just going to state that, Tracy, for the record. So it is not, we have not budgeted the books for purchase this year. So this amount of money is going to have to be part of the budget development process that we go through for the CIA department this spring. So it will go into with everything else that we will be planning to do for next year. So it will be part of the department process. The recommendation itself to move forward with this will be approved by you all today. Budgeting is a different body and it comes at a different time. So I want to make sure we're clear on that.
So that will be recorded in the notes, correct? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And as my understanding is, every time we're recommending it to the board at any rate, they have to have final say. Isn't that correct?
Well, it would be part of a budget. It would be part of the budget decisions that will be brought forward to the board for approval. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to make sure we clarified that too. Thank you. All right. I'm still figuring out the best way to do approval process. Is it thumbs? Is it put your hand up in your chat? Or I'm still trying to figure out what works best. So is the thumbs okay, or your hand? Is that all right? Is that what you did before? Okay. So all those favor, please do your thumb up or your hand in the chat. Or the thumb in the chat. Okay. All right. I see all of those. Is there anyone opposed? All right. Motion is approved. Then thank you, Jen, very much for the work of you and your team, and Nikki, and for the presentation today. It's very, very thorough for us. So we will be moving this on. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, that was all for tonight. There's 2 housekeeping items. Sign up for your 2 pilot books if you have not done so already for the middle school and high school ELA review. So we're just asking everyone to read 2, and there is a list that started and you will have access to that. And then the other thing was there is a survey link that Kathy has sent out to you. And if you have a moment to fill out that survey, it will just help give Ashley and I some information moving forward this year on CMAC. So if you haven't done that, please take 5 minutes to fill out your survey, and we will be looking at that information this week. Is there anything I am missing, Ashley or Kathy? Anything I'm missing?
No, I think you got it all.
Kathy, I clicked on the link that you just recently sent as a reminder for that survey, and something was off. Would it be too much to ask for you to put it in the chat real quick?
I'll go ahead and do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn, for mentioning
I'll
that.
send it as an email again too to everyone as well.
All right, our next meeting is on March 20th. So next meeting is March 20th. Kathy, do we have anything in the queue for review other than the novels? Start working on those. Is there anything in the queue?
Nope, nothing's come up yet.
All right, so we will, if nothing comes up, as you know, then we will not have a meeting, but we will send out reminders. And I know there were a couple documents that you have requested that we will get sent to you sometime in the next few days. We will get those out to you. So thank you all very much for tonight. And there is the link to the survey. So enjoy and have a good evening. Thank you.